A very good evening. You're watching The Big Debate with me, Gauri Dwivedi, and our rolling coverage continues of President Trump's maiden visit to India. And of course, a lot hinges over the next 24 hours in terms of the broad engagement and the overarching sentiment as far as Indo-US ties are concerned. But let's also not forget that February 29th is when President Trump is set to, or at least seem to be, fulfilling a big campaign commitment, which has been withdrawal of US troops from Afghanistan, a battle that has been going on for 19 long years. It's been a bloody battle for the United States. Casualties have been a little under 2,500. There are about 13,000, give or take, boots on ground for American boots on ground in Afghanistan, and the 29th of February deal that was announced by Mike Pompeo earlier, the Secretary of State, is expected to pave the way for a complete disengagement of American troops from Afghanistan. Now, the larger question here is that when a Taliban peace deal is being talked about, it has huge implications for India on several counts. First and foremost, India didn't have a seat at the high table when negotiations were being made. Of course, when there will be national security implications, they will be amplified because Taliban has still not disengaged with Al-Qaeda, which of course means bad news for India. The larger picture from here on, what is it that India needs to do? Can Indian concerns, can India's security concerns be taken into consideration by America? It's a poll year, but given the bonhomie that President Trump and PM Modi enjoy, is Afghan peace deal and India's concerns regarding it, would that be addressed? Is the key debate that we're having this evening. All right, with me on the broadcast, Sumit, political analyst, Priya Sehgal, Senior Executive Editor of NewsX, Manish Pandey, Editor of the ITV Network, and Saurav Shukla, Foreign Affairs Journalist as well on the broadcast. All right, in fact, Saurav, let me start with you. You know, February 29th is expected to be very significant for the United States, for President Trump himself. It marks a huge commitment that he'd made, but India's security concerns get amplified further. The larger question is, will that be addressed by President Trump at any point?
Well, I can tell you that India will have to manage some deft diplomacy when it comes to Afghanistan. And obviously, while if you see the rock star-like address by President Trump today, and the fact that he spoke about India's concerns as well, like Islamic terrorism is something which is a common concern that we have. He talked about convergence on Indo-Pacific, but Afghanistan is something largely the Prime Minister and Donald Trump will discuss behind closed doors when they meet tomorrow. And I can tell you this has been flagged to the United States by our interlocutors earlier as well during the preparatory meetings they've had in the run-up to the Trump visit. And I can tell you, India is going to tell President Trump very clearly that Afghanistan is something which is of strategic significance to India. They should not be mindful of the fact that Pakistan continues to foment terrorism not only in India but in Afghanistan as well. And largely, instability in Afghanistan is Pakistan's responsibility, because be it the Haqqani network, the Taliban, they've all been fueled by Pakistan and ISI, and those concerns will be articulated. In fact, the joint statement that you will see, which is being ironed out, just small things being left, you will see some kind of convergence coming out on Afghanistan, where India and United States will agree for some kind of a role in stabilizing Afghanistan. India does not want to get into Afghanistan at all militarily, but you will see some kind of diplomacy, and concerns of India should be met. Although, as they say, every country acts as in national interest. United States will act in its national interest as well, but you will see some kind of concerns of India being met by the United States when it comes to Afghanistan.
Okay, Manish, what could they be? Because, you know, all along, US has said, if you really want to be part of the negotiation, then you've got to, have boots on ground. Something that India has been absolutely certain that it doesn't want to do at all.
My take is very clear on this, because anyway, what I have got from the South Asia watchers from DC and all, the deal is not in India's favor anyway. So leave aside that. But going to this boot and barrel diplomacy, India is not for that. India will be playing along with US in the development agenda, which will be a better option for India, because India doesn't want to drag itself into that mode in Taliban in Afghanistan, where it has a sort of goodwill from the government also among the people also. So the boot and barrel, which you said, the guns and all, India is not going to do any militaristic step there.
So what kind of its concerns could actually be addressed? Very limited to that effect then.
Yeah.
Do you think so? Very limited?
I think, ma'am, I've been maintaining my stand, because when it comes to Afghanistan, President Trump is bothered about, taking his people out from there. It's his election year. He's spending $50 billion a year. He has burned $1 trillion with 2,000, 3,000 deaths, around 20 to 30 deaths happening in a year. And he has admitted that they have got nothing out of it so far. So he wants to move out of it. That is very clear, and that is his agenda number one. But the problem is, the moment you have US moves out of there, there's a vacuum left in Afghanistan.
What
happens to that vacuum?
There are two things. There are two things. One is that there is a vacuum.
Yeah.
Second is the role of Pakistan.
Yeah, that's
it is
exactly
very instrumental for the Afghan peace deal to actually not just fructify but also
to survive.
Stay. Yeah, survive.
That is the point I'm trying to make.
So Pakistan becomes important.
Yeah, India becomes equally important.
In Pentagon scheme of things. And second is the vacuum that
vacuum is that, because
will mean that, of course, amplified security concerns.
Correct, because when the vacuum is created, these Talibanis will have nothing else to do, because today US is keeping them busy. The moment they move and Pakistan getting together, and there are networks which are common in both the countries. Now they might have a common enemy like India. So for that deal to stay, to fructify and reasonably be there, I want to make one important point. Because you are doing a deal with Taliban, you might win an election, but at the end of the day, Taliban is not a legitimate country. Tomorrow, after 6 months, they may say there is no deal. What you are doing, you are letting them time to regroup. And ma'am, there is never a full 100% withdrawal. If there is a partial withdrawal, a situation like Benghazi is a possibility of life. And you know what it costed Mrs. Clinton by Benghazi. Now, is President Trump willing to take that risk? Because I know Pentagon and other security establishments are against withdrawal of Pakistan from Afghanistan.
So
you might reduce the troops. You might reduce the troops.
Partial withdrawal.
But leaving Afghanistan is, you might leave for 6 months. You might not be able to enter, or the cost of entry might be too high.
So partial withdrawal also could have some sort of implications. The other side to it is that a lot of critiques have pointed out, Priya, is that this deal also legitimizes the Taliban. That is also one thing. They've legitimized Taliban, which itself is something that should not have even happened from day one.
Well, Trump has done a whole lot of stuff that should not have happened in his hurry to send his own message out. He's reversed a whole lot of policies of the previous government. This is one of them in directly engaging with them. But within the BJP also there is some kind of, there are two voices on whether this boots on the ground argument. Yes, most people are against it, for the obvious reasons. But there is a section that is pointing out to Prime Minister that if you have to bargain, and this is something that Trump really wants, then ask them to give us a favorable stand, support us on POK, and say, you help us in POK, we will put troops on the ground, and they feel that would help us get a foot in Afghanistan, which goes a long way in controlling the relations with Pakistan, keeping an eye on Pakistan. So there is a section within the BJP also that is pushing for this. Of course, which section has the upper hand is something that Prime Minister Modi himself knows.
In fact, that might not be a bad idea, because if there is a vacuum created, how do we protect our interests? We can't have Taliban and Pakistanis coming to our border.
Okay, Saurabh wants to come in, and then we get in Manish as well.
I will tell you, the thinking at the highest level in the government is very clear that while India needs to get an elbow room out, it has to shy away from active deployment in Afghanistan. That is going to be a worse decision if we decide to get into Afghanistan militarily. We will have strategic assets there like we have. We will obviously expand our assets in terms of maybe covert assets, making sure we provide Afghanistan whatever help on the security, intelligence gathering, but actually getting boots on the ground, I don't think will be a wise idea, and strategically it will be a mistake we'll be making. And I think people in the government at the highest level realize that. That's the reason what they're talking to the Americans, and that will be articulated tomorrow when the two leaders meet as well, is that don't let India get elbowed out, because India is your trusted and dependable ally in Afghanistan. We can not only make sure that we have a convergence of interest in keeping Islamic fundamentalism, terrorism at bay, will also has interest in making sure Pakistan and ISI they don't turn Afghanistan into a battleground of terrorism and fundamentalism yet again, which obviously they would want to do. They're trying to blackmail the Americans on that, but I think the larger big picture that India is trying to present to America is that we will be inside Afghanistan in the development agenda, in the security establishment, but not putting actual boots on the ground, because that will be running against the kind of strategy that India and the US have for Afghanistan.
Okay, yes, Manish, yes.
Taking on from what Saurabh has said, and that is what I will quote unofficially my sources in the MEA. India will not like to sell its image, development face in the region. So there is no point of getting with boots and guns there. But in the great game, India is definitely going to enter along with US at a later stage to push the development agenda in the region, because Afghanistan we cannot leave.
Okay.
Okay. Let this deal go on, and then you will see. And yes, Trump has done that in haste, as Priya has mentioned, and all. And US diplomats and the US strategists are not happy with US losing this tag of a global superpower, that you are forced to leave a place. If you talk to people there, US is worried on this growing image worldwide, that US is no more that country which can just get into a country and impose its power straight away. So these are the regions, these were the strategic regions, and this is also the region which is opening up more towards Central Asia and all.
Okay.
So this is a big game waiting to happen.
Strategic location of Afghanistan also is extremely important.
I think,
yes.
ma'am, the one quick point is, how much can you trust this Taliban? Because at the end of the day, militia, they are jihadis. They might sign something with you today. After 6 months, they'll say, we don't respect anything. Now, what is the ground you lose, and what happens to India's interest then? US may not enter, Afghanistan. They've already withdrawn, but we have a problem knocking our door. So we have to have a strategy. So I am personally against the boots and barrel on the ground. But what if Taliban backs out and the Pakistan collides with them? We can't have them coming to our doorstep and knocking us.
So then,
what do we do? I mean, if we are a superpower, we want to be a superpower, we want to be a global player. Somewhere down the line, a thought process on those lines, not putting on the Bursa on those lines, might not be something which we don't want to think on it. You might want to seriously think on it for your national interest.
POTUS is fairly transactional in his approach, and to that effect, the transaction is very clear. The thinking is very clear. You want a seat on the negotiating table, you got to send your boots on the ground. They're very clear about it. But yes, Manish, you have a point to make.
I just want to add here, if you recall Trump's address, where he said that when he was talking about the terror and the security issue in South Asia region, he said that US cannot fight and bear the cost alone.
Correct.
For this. So that was a signal there that sooner or later India will be involved, but India has also made it categorically, and now India's status is different. You cannot drag India straight away into something without the consent.
Okay, I don't know about that. This whole appeasement of US, one second, let me speak also. Sumit, you've spoken a lot. Can we have a word?
Yes.
So this whole appeasement of Donald, the US that we are seeing also is, I don't know how much India is going to hold back at the end of the day, because usually when relations between two countries are at, the diplomatic level and the two countries take a stand. Here we are seeing a whole lot of personal chemistry coming in, one person trying to forward another one's agenda. It's more the personal bonhomie. So given that in mind, I don't know how much Prime Minister Modi will give in to Donald Trump. In exchange, will Donald Trump keep shut about religious freedom? He's already held that threat on to try and make us toe the line. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much give
But
and
Priya,
take happens.
that's the personal chemistry also, where you are also dealing with, he has not raised a stink on your S-400 deal so far, despite entire US raising the concern. So he has not said that you can deal with Putin also. You can have you can go and do your oil imports from Iran. Although he is saying that you also get the energy import enhanced from the US, and you can do business with China. You are doing the business with China despite US snapping the trade ties with China.
A huge trade deficit
So
of $65
that
billion.
personal chemistry is some way actually helping India also to go with the multipolar diplomacy.
All right, good to have a difference of opinion. Yes, Priya, finish your point, then I get Saurabh.
Get in Saurabh, I don't mind his point. But the point is, I don't know whether it's helping or not. That's what I wanted to say. Let's see how far
it is helping
goes.
at least on
Okay,
the
but then let me also ask the larger question. I have a larger question about Pakistan also. You know, we may talk long term, very long term, strategic, so on and so forth. In the short term, in the immediate term, Pakistan is very important for United States. Where does that take us in terms of our objective towards countering terrorism that comes from Pakistan, that is sponsored from Pakistan? Will the US continue its kid glove treatment because it has to support its Afghan deal? That's the question. Saurabh.
I can tell you one thing. If you want to be a leader, that too a global leader, you have to think and act like one. And that includes tackling Pakistan the way that you deem fit. You cannot expect US to fight your battle. Yes, they can exert pressure, and I can tell you Donald Trump has been one US president who has been far more forthright and I would say impactful on the issue of terrorism. Having said that, they have their limitations. That's the reason, if you saw during his address today also, he spoke about Pakistan, but he also talked about the fact that Pakistan is changing tack on the issue of terrorism. So you will see that while US will put pressure, but ultimately India will have to fight its own battle with Pakistan that it has been doing through, be it a surgical strike, be it on a diplomatic level, or making sure that we have assets on the ground to deal with Pakistan.
Okay.
But if we think that only US can fight our battle in Pakistan, that is not going to work. We will have to make sure we develop capabilities, even more capabilities, where US will also look the other way. It did look the other way when India conducted surgical strikes against Pakistan, and it will continue to do the other way. This is I would say the tribute to India's strategic relationship and diplomacy vis-a-vis the US.
Okay.
Also, must mention here that India continues to manage its strategic autonomy very well.
Yes.
Don't forget, he talked about Prime Minister Narendra Modi as a tough negotiator. Whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's on trade, Prime Minister Modi will continue to do that when it comes to dealing with the US.
But
Alright.
Saurabh, who said he's a tough negotiator? His friend Donald Trump. Right? Let's see somebody, another US person say he's a tough negotiator.
No, Modi ji is known to be a tough negotiator. He's known to be a tough negotiator.
He is a tough negotiator. That's why
Let's
the
see,
trade
all
deal
he's doing is
is
giving, all we're doing
And
is buying
there
planes
is
and giving money
empirical
away.
evidence
Have we
for
got
that.
anything in return?
No, ma'am,
That's
there
a
is
question I come back and ask in exactly 10 minutes from now. But yes,
That's a very
that's a
naive way
question
of
I ask
looking
in
at
10
the big
minutes.
picture,
Okay,
Priya.
let the
Sorry.
viewer
That's a
first
very naive way of
know
looking at the
the
big
final
picture.
word as far as what the
We have
Afghan
a
peace
very
deal
naive
means.
way.
We're going to have
We
a deep
got
dive into that
far more
question.
when it comes to-
We're going to have a deep dive, Saurabh, into that question, that what is there beyond this tamasha, beyond the spectacle, beyond the optics. We're going to have a larger question on that and a larger conversation around that. But Manish, let's first come back and sort out the Pakistan-Afghanistan angle that we said. What do you think? This kid glove treatment of United States is going to continue at least till the polls? Because he wants a re-election to happen peacefully, and for that the Afghan peace deal needs to go through. For that he means he's going to have a carrot and stick approach, more of carrot, less of stick for Pakistan.
As I've said earlier also, and I will not say it a purely kid glove treatment, because if we are taking it from one statement saying Pakistan is our friend, at least he has slammed Pakistan on 5 counts when he
Yes,
was talking
yes.
about terrorism and all. But it's not as easy as said for an American president to just denounce a country like Pakistan that I'm in India, because Pakistan is still the biggest defense buyer, one of the
Yes.
biggest from America.
Yes.
And if India goes totally in buying with the deals with,
And
so India is not yet opened up. They are still buying from Russia and all. So you have to open your purse strings to the country. So it's pure business.
Okay.
And with Taliban deal coming in the way, so that is also a compulsion.
That
But
makes
if you
life
see
easy
the-
for Imran
But if
Khan.
you also see the
He
4
can
years,
breathe easy,
if
yes.
you see the 4 years, the way Pakistan has been treated from this regime is totally different from the earlier regimes.
Yes, to that effect, yes. I just want to quickly refresh viewers' memory that it was Donald Trump who said in a tweet on 1st of January 2018, when he said that we've pumped in $31 billion in Pakistan over so many decades, and we've got zilch in terms of our war on terror, and now we do a complete shutdown as far as aid is concerned, and of course those billions of dollars that were flowing into Islamabad did stop. But as I said, that's one of the issues. The larger issue still persists. Sumit, and then of course Saurabh.
I think if you look at President Donald Trump, he has been very candid on Pakistan. American policy has changed. He has stopped the aid to Pakistan. He has been questioning them on various fronts. And today he makes 3 important things. One is he comes on Indian soil and talks of Islamic terror. Second, he talks of the terrorism emanating from Pakistan, and he's trying. I'm trying to do things, but I won't be able to do a lot of things. The only thing what you can expect logically from United States of America is you go and do and fix Pakistan, because they're a bankrupt state with 4 billion of reserves. They have no money to buy arms from anybody today. Fix them. They will only ensure a power like China or any third party does not come in between.
Okay.
You know, that is the best you can expect from Donald Trump. And he said, I'll give you the latest equipment, I will give you the latest weapons. And answering one question, ma'am, we have a $25 billion of trade surplus with US, while in China, we have a 65 billion of trade deficit.
Okay.
So still our trade is in our favor, $25 billion, out of which 20 billion is goods and 5 billion is services. So even if we give them $4-5 billion of buying some Apaches and all that, there's a state of our technology, still we are on the upper side.
Okay.
And they are our biggest trading partner, which has been admitted and acknowledged today.
But then, Priya, let me ask you this. The moment you talk about national security, you talk about, those terror havens that exist and will probably get a fresh lease of life the moment, you have this Afghan peace deal going through with Taliban, of course, finding those safe havens easily in Pakistan. That complicates life as far as, India's security concerns are concerned, especially, the volatile environment we've seen, particularly related to J&K. That obviously means that India will have to be far more prepared. Home Ministry will have to be far more prepared. NSA will have to draw up a roadmap. How much of help can we expect from US in that?
Well, again, if US is going to play a balancing role between, as you said, it has its interest in Pakistan also. He said as much as he can say, given the fact that he's the head of state, which is why I'm wondering how much should we commit ourselves, because he's got his interests in mind. We have to see our interests. Is it in his interest for us to put boots on the ground in Afghanistan, or is it in our interest to put boots on the ground in Afghanistan? Can we control the situation better without it? As I said, there were two views in this thing. So at the end of the day, even if we agree to it, I would really like to see the give and take of this equation. Why has he come on election year to India? What is he hoping to get at the end of the day is the big thing. What is his get is going to be to move out of Afghanistan smoothly and leave the hot potato with us. Do we want that hot potato? Is it in our interest?
And how do we deal with it? Because let's understand, there is a whole lot of apparatus, security apparatus that needs to be built, rebuilt, refurbished when you talk about these safe havens getting a fresh lease of life, these terror safe havens getting a fresh lease of life. Okay, Saurav Shukla, quickly.
I can tell you one thing, that every country conducts diplomacy in its own self-interest. Donald Trump is also doing diplomacy in his self-interest. The fact that he's here in India also has something to do with the new chemistry that we have between India and the US. And that tells you a different story, that whether it's in Afghanistan, whether it's Indo-Pacific, whether on the issue of trade, terrorism or defense ties, it's a new paradigm of Indo-US relationship that you're looking at. And that's the reason when it comes to Afghanistan as well, you will see India's interests will be protected. Yes, there will be, I would say, ups and downs. We have to be prepared for it. Yes, India has to be prepared to deal with the situation, but you will have US taking care of that. India is not elbowed out of the Afghanistan process. This is what I gather from the narrative and the relationship, the way it is going.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.